Winter brought a strange sort of quiet to the world that Spyro just couldn't put into words. The purple dragon sat on the temple's balcony, overlooking the silent world below. Under the dual moon's light, the fallen snow was shaded a dull lavender. The large mushrooms littered all around the land bore the weight of the frost, occasionally creaking and interrupting the stillness. Spyro didn't move when gentle footsteps approached him. Snow crunched softly under light paws.
You're up early. Very early.
Cinder sat down beside him. Spyro glanced at his companion, watching her warm breath escape into the frigid air in small puffs.
I couldn't sleep. Guess I'm just too excited to hear Cyril ramble on for another hour about the history of ice dragons.
The black dragoness snorted, lightly shoving Spyro's side with her wing.
Oh, ancestors. That was a nightmare.
Clearing her throat, Cinder straightened.
Yes, old chap. I dare say we wouldn't have half the things we have to look forward to without ice dragon traditions. They date back eons and eons ago.
Spyro laughed at her impression, complete with a paw waved furiously this way and that, to really help enunciate every word.
Oh, and might I add, the very first ice dragons to create these glorious winter traditions were my own ancestors of yore. My bloodline can be traced all the way back. Can you believe it?
Cinder groaned light-heartedly as she finished, slouching.
We're in for a whole lot more of that today.
Don't remind me.
Spyro shivered, scooting a bit closer to Cinder.
Aren't you at all excited for the Glacian Set Festival? Even Terador and Voltaire are looking forward to it, so it can't be all bad.
Yawning, Cinder shook her head.
No, I am. I do want to learn more about the holiday that's so important to our culture. I just...
don't want to listen to Cyril going about his lineage for the upteenth time.
Yeah.
The two young heroes looked at each other, exchanging knowing smiles.
Well, I'm going to try and get a little rest before we have to start preparing.
I think I'll join you.
Together, Spyro and Cinder headed back inside and out of the cold. Good nights were briefly mumbled as the two drowsy dragons hunkered down until morning. Once the sun had risen and the temple's residents had awoken, Spyro and Cinder made their way to the main floor. Voltaire was waiting there, fidgeting with excitement. Spyro, Cinder, oh, today we finally begin preparations for the Glacian Set Festival. I've been so disinterested, so fatigued, tired, so bored of repairing this temple. Now at long last we can set the work aside and, well, we'll still be working, but a different kind.
It'll be a nice change, for sure.
The Guardians, after the chaos of Malifaux's attack and defeat of all of its consequences, returned to the temple once no longer needed in Warfang. Together, they, and with the help of Spyro and Cinder, had begun trying to repair the ancient structure to something of its former glory.
Will it really take 3 full days of preparation?
Why yes, we must decorate the temple and create the decorations. Oh, ancestors, you two will get to add your threads upon the great tapestries of old. Oh, how terribly electrifying, thrilling, exhilarating. Oh, I cannot wait to show you everything.
It certainly sounds...
Oh, and then there's a ceremonial hunt. It's far more refined now, you see, but our ancestors sure seem to enjoy the bloodiness of our... Voltaire cleared his throat and let the thought die on his tongue once he saw Terador watching him from the doorway. Good morning, Terador. I was just attempting to enlighten the young dragons about our...
I am aware.
The old Earth Dragon sighed, giving Spyro and Cinder a stiff smile as he entered the room.
You two will begin with me today. Come along now.
Gratefully, Spyro and Cinder fell in step beside Terrador.
As you both surely know by now, while this festival was created by dragons, we are not the only ones who celebrate when the months grow cold.
Yes, Sparks has gone back home to spend the holidays.
Which is why there's a beautiful lack of sarcasm in every conversation.
The Glacian Set Festival was, as I know Cyril has made you aware, originally an ice dragon tradition, but over the years, it grew to be what it is today, a celebration of all dragonkind, our differences and our unity.
Spyro and Cinder listened intently as they walked the dusty halls of the ancient sanctuary.
Back then, we did not live in the harmony we do today. Dragons typically kept to those of their own element. Over time, our ancestors realized that there were things they should fear more than each other in the world. Particularly, during a heavy snowstorm, many dragons took shelter in the Ice Dragon's central shrine. There, they waited out the blizzard by weaving, eating, and dancing, as we will soon get to do.
With this, they arrived in the garden. Terrador's frown fell a little deeper than it normally did at the state of the flora. It had not seen care in many years, and any plants that still remained were shriveled and dead.
Earth dragons used to cultivate special cotton that was used to create the festival's binding tapestries. Perhaps there's a thread lying around elsewhere.
What did the other dragons do?
Terrador began to dig up the old plants, something he had neglected since the repairs began.
While the earth dragons would weave the cotton to create the binding tapestries, electric dragons would use the material to craft fancy clothing for partygoers. Ice dragons typically prepared the dance for the end of the festival. Fire dragons would gather to perform the ceremonial hunt and assemble the feast. The wind dragons would handle the music, while the water dragons provided songs and stories with their unique voices.
Everyone played a role.
Indeed. Nowadays, though, not many stick to the traditional roles. Any dragon is, of course, free to participate in any part of the festival's preparations.
There's so much more than I would have thought. What can we do?
Well, Spyro, if you feel able, maybe you can gather together our feast. As Voltaire mentioned, it used to be much more primal of a sport with what sorts of creatures were around back then. You can go down along the valley and fish the morning of the festival. Until then, you can help here and there with whoever needs you.
I can do that, sure.
Cinder, perhaps you would be interested in the traditional wind dragon's role.
Cinder's wings fluttered.
Playing an instrument? I'd love to, but I think I'll need more than 3 days to learn that.
I understand. Maybe instead, if you're up for it, you could fly to Warfang and retrieve some supplies there. Could probably even find cotton.
Terrador, once more, murmured this mostly to himself, pausing his digging.
I'm up for that. If I leave now and I don't take any breaks, I should be able to get back this evening. What else should I grab while I'm there?
Terrador began a mental checklist, as Spyro nudged Cinder with his wing.
Are you sure you're up for such a long trip in the cold?
Aw, are you worried about me?
Cinder leaned against her best friend.
I'll be okay. I've been itching for a good flight anyways. I promise I'll be safe.
Spyro trusted her strength, knowing her determination firsthand.
Alright, I'll see you tonight then.
Cinder nodded, embracing Spyro before taking note of Terrador's grocery list, and heading inside to write it down and prepare for her journey. Spyro watched her disappear into the inner temple.
Well, Spyro, there's really not much else I can teach you without the cotton. Tomorrow we'll get to weaving once Cinder returns with the supplies. Why don't you go help Voltaire or Cyril?
Right. Thanks, Terrador.
Spyro smiled warmly at the Elder Earth Guardian before leaving. Terrador couldn't help but grin to himself. Spyro already looked so much like Ignitus. Spyro spent the day learning how to dance with Cyril's strict instructions and what the Ice Dragon deemed proper ballroom etiquette. He was also educated with how to best accessorize with Voltaire. Some old musty clothing still remained from decades ago, which Spyro was apprehensive to wear. Voltaire looked very pleased, however. All the while, both guardians spoke of their history and the root of the traditions and other facts that the purple dragon found quite interesting. Still, he couldn't keep his thoughts from wandering back to Cinder every so often. Again, Spyro found himself sitting out on the balcony as the sun began to descend behind the forest of mushrooms. He didn't need to wait long, as a figure drew closer and closer from over the horizon. Spyro stood to greet his companion as she landed. Cinder panted and shook herself off. She let the large bag that had been slung over her shoulder fall to the ground. As well, she had been fitted with saddlebags to carry even more. Spyro helped her unclip these from her middle.
How was the trip?
He asked, joy evident in his tone. His excitement in her return made Cinder chuckle.
I am beyond exhausted, but it went well.
Spyro watched with interest as she opened her bag to show off her spoils. Cinder went through the contents while talking about her adventure. Spyro enjoyed the sound of her voice. It was well and truly night by the time the two young dragons decided to head back inside. The extra bitter chill the evening brought finally snapped them out of their fun. Spyro helped Cinder carry her bags inside, and once settled, Cinder dozed off right away. Spyro soon joined her after a bit of thinking.